My name is John Paradise. I'm from Town and Country Federal Credit Union. Thank you for participating in advance in our financial wellness virtual workshop series. This is our latest in a series that we've presented last month and this month, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, a very interesting topic, a very timely topic, when life throws you a financial curveball, dealing with life's financial hurdles. And we certainly are seeing a lot of people undergo a lot of unforeseen and unexpected financial challenges. And hopefully tonight's workshop will provide some insight into that. Let me introduce our presenters. Brittany Eaton. Brittany is our collections manager from Town and Country Federal Credit Union. She is joined by Tanya Zambatakos. I hope I pronounced that right, Tanya.
Perfect.
From Muller Law. So we're very pleased, and I'll turn it to Brittany and Tanya.
All right, welcome everyone. So happy you could join us. So today, what we're gonna go over is information and resources really to just help you navigate through life's biggest challenges caused by financial stress, and this year, COVID, that everyone has been infected in some way. So we're hopefully going to give you some tools and help you through that. Also, feel free to use the chat feature that is available throughout the presentation. We're going to keep an eye on that. So if you do have questions along the way, we're going to try and stop and try and answer those for you. All right. So some of life's curveballs. If you're looking at this list, I'm sure maybe you've gone through one, two, maybe all of them, hopefully not all at the same time. But these are a lot that we see every day working with our members. So for COVID-19, of course, your job loss, maybe a lower income. So today we're going to give you tools and tricks to help navigate through them. So these next few slides in this presentation, hopefully we'll be able to help you navigate through these. So the financial impact that those can have on you can be a lot. So maybe you have been out of work because of COVID unexpectedly, obviously in the beginning of the year, or you are now having to stay home and homeschool your child, which is now a loss of income, which is then cause you to use your credit cards, you're getting mounting bills, or maybe you've just fallen behind on payments because you have limited hours and you just don't know when you're going to return back to normal. Or maybe it's you got hurt at a job, so then you had to go into your savings. So a lot of these things can have an impact on your finances, your everyday finances. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Tanya?
No, I mean, I think that's great. I just, what we're going to do today is more than anything is we want to make this helpful for you. So we really want to encourage you to use the chat function. A lot of times what I do for my day job is I'm primarily a bankruptcy attorney, which means I represent people and small businesses that are seeking relief under the bankruptcy code, which means that they probably have an overwhelming amount of debt that they need assistance with. And a lot of times with that comes, people feel embarrassed. There's a shame. And, I always say it's easier sitting on my side of the table because ultimately it's just math, right? It's not enough income coming in to cover what needs to go out. And so that being said, I want to encourage you all, to the extent that you have questions, we want this to be helpful for you. You're choosing to spend your time attending this, so we want to make this useful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that being said, reach out for help. This is like our main thing that hopefully take away from this is, with all this financial stress, with the world that we're living in right now, when I'm working with members every day, and I'm sure Tanya say this too, just reach out, just ask questions as soon as you start to feel those financial stress. Or this year, I mean, everyone didn't really know what to do. So just reach out. You don't know what your financial institution can help you with, or maybe a bankruptcy attorney. So I always just members just reach out. Maybe you're still working, you still have your full pay, but you don't know what the future this year could hold. And with that being said too, be open to discuss your financial institution. I know situation. I know with working with members it can be embarrassing. It's tough to talk about. But for us to find the best solution for you, like in the collections world or also in the bankruptcy world, we need to see the whole financial picture. So talking about everything you're going through, really laying out a budget. Let's see what we can do to help you, because you may be shocked at what your financial institution can do, or what we can do to help your budget, anything. So just reach out. I say would be my number one thing right now. If you're feeling like stressed with your finances, I say that all the time. Just reach out, reach out, reach out.
But, and you know, that's often the hardest thing to do, because what happens for most people when they get in a position where they can't pay certain bills or they feel like they're behind is that when the mail comes in, you are 99% sure what's in that envelope, and you don't want to see it because you're already stressed enough. So that envelope goes unopened in the drawer if you're lucky, or perhaps in the trash can. But it's really very hard to actually open it and look at it and talk about what to do with it. And so if you find yourself in that situation, know that you're not alone. I can't tell you how many people say to me, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't even opened it. I said, well, you and pretty much every single one of my other clients, because you know what's there and you know you can't do anything about it. So you're not alone in that. And then the other thing that I'll mention too, for those of us who are not fortunate enough to have our mortgages with Town and Country, a lot of the big lenders are offering forbearances for their monthly payments, but there's an open question as to what is going to happen at the end of the forbearance period. So for those of you who are in that situation, who perhaps requested a forbearance, or for a lot of the big lenders, they're just giving you forbearances even without you asking, you want to make sure to start the conversation with them sooner rather than later as far as what's going to happen at the end of the forbearance period. Because we're starting to see some of those periods end, and you want to make sure that you're proactive about dealing with that. So,
yes, very good point. So options. Here at Town and Country, we have all kinds of options for our members, especially during this time of COVID and before COVID. So contact your creditors and your financial institutions, see what they have to offer. Here at Town and Country, we're offering a crisis assistance relief loan for COVID. As Tanya just mentioned, we're doing mortgage loan payment relief, as well as consumer and home equity loan payment relief. So we're skipping up to 90 days on the payments. So reach out, see what you can do. I know student loans, I have some student loans that I didn't even have to do anything and they're deferred to the end of the year, but I had another one that I didn't receive anything. So I reached out to them. They said, oh, yep, we can put it in deferment. And so it's in deferment until December. But I never received anything, and I just reached out to see, are they even offering it? So contact them, see if they are offering. And at Town and Country, we are offering some of those things. Also, COVID related and non-COVID related, check your loans for loan protection, the insurance. You may have loan protection on your loans and totally forgot you signed for it, or not even realize that that's an option. So for example, I had a member that recently got diagnosed with breast cancer. She was out of work for at least 4 months, limited pay, called to just say, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And we looked and she had loan protection on her loans. So we were able to get her loans paid for her when she was out of work and while she's still getting treatment. Or COVID, a lot of members, they were laid off, unexpected. They had loan protection on there. Their loans are getting paid while they're looking for a job and the delay in unemployment. So it was really able to help them. So call, see if you have that protection on there, because it really may give you some financial relief.
and you know, one thing I'll just reiterate with what Brittany said, the loans are actually being paid. So they're not just being deferred, which is another option, but it's kind of the best possible outcome is somebody else is making your payments for you. So you don't have to worry about what's going to happen or how you're going to catch up because they're being paid. So that would be huge. Definitely.
Exactly. And you may have, for instance, this woman, she had gotten the loan for 3 years ago, totally forgot she signed for it. So had no idea. And then once you said, hey, you have this, you got at the time of the loan, obviously she was very excited and we were excited because we could help her and she could get treatment and not have to worry about that stress. Other financial relief options with just a payment plan. call, see if you can do a payment plan with your institution. You can maybe be lower or restructure your loan payments. So you may have a personal loan and a credit card and a car loan, and you have some equity in that car loan. Maybe you can consolidate all those into one monthly payment and save, maybe it's $50. I mean, we save members hundreds of dollars each month just consolidating things. Or maybe you have your home loan. It has a lot of equity, and we can roll in some unsecured debt in that. Again, one monthly payment, more affordable, or consolidating your debt. Maybe you have some high balance credit cards with high interest at big companies, and you just want to pay them down. It's just like an endless cycle that you can't get to. Call and see if we can consolidate those into a personal loan with that one monthly payment, and you're getting it paid down faster, is an option that we help our members with every day, it seems like. So ask about that, because it could be an option and really help your monthly budget.
And what I'll say about that too, and especially with Town and Country, is that if you go in and you just don't know what to do, but you listen to Brittany's advice about talking to someone about it. So you're saying, all right, fine, I'll bring all my unopened mail, I'll go and I'll talk to somebody. And you go and you sit and you go through it. They'll be honest with you with respect to whether or not this new consolidated loan is something that's going to be affordable for you. Because, and I've seen that, because what they'll do is if they sit down and they determine that new loan, despite it saving you some money, it's still not going to be affordable for you in the long term, they'll say, hey, you may want to look into some other options. You may want to think about bankruptcy, because Town and Country isn't afraid of that B word. And so it's really a tool that can be used to help you move forward financially. And they understand that. And they also understand that they don't want to get you in over your head with this consolidated loan, because that doesn't help you and it doesn't help them either. So and I've seen that, and not every institution would be honest with you about that. So sing their praises as far as that. So
thank you. So moving on to debt management that Tanya is going to speak on for us.
So you have all these debts and you're not quite sure what to do. Well, the good news is you do have options. The one that Brittany talked about, as far as consolidating them, getting a personal loan, and perhaps when you do that, the interest rate will be lower than the very reasonable 18, 19, 29% that you're paying on your credit cards. Or heaven forbid, it's one of those online loans where the interest rates are over 100%. So you get this consolidated loan. Okay, that's one option. Another option is debt settlement. So debt settlement is when you have these debts that you can't pay the full amount, but perhaps you can pay something, and the creditor will agree to take less than the full amount and call it even. So for example, you have a credit card that has a $5,000 balance, and you defaulted, you haven't been able to pay on it since the beginning of the year, since March, COVID hit. You worked in the hospitality industry, you lost your job, you haven't been able to pay it. And so now you're 6-7 months behind on this payment. That creditor now views you as a risky customer because they haven't received any money. They haven't received their 29% interest from you in months. So now you're very risky. And so they may be willing to accept less than the full amount, which means that if you are able to put aside, let's say $2,500, you might be able to say to Bank of America, I know I owe you $5,000, but will you agree to take this $2,500 and call it even, and we can both move on with our lives? And they very well may say yes. Now, of course, there can be tax consequences to that. And if you're in that situation, you definitely want to talk to an accountant, a CPA, make sure that you're not going to have any tax issues with that, because it can be tax settlement. There can be some tax implications, but it's a nice option for people that may have, one or two credit cards that are defaulted, and you're maybe able to pay less than the full amount on that one.
Yep, and we do help members. We deal with that as well. We help members. Sometimes that may be the only option. And so we will work with members and try and do that with our own loans. And also, we work with members too that may be dealing, and Tanya, you may be going to speak on this, but companies that try and help you with your finances and try and do a settlement basically for you, or try and say, hey, you have this credit card with Town and Country, you should just offer them X amount a month. And the members are then paying this company a fee. We work with members that are dealing with those companies as well. And we always say, come to us first, because we may be able to help you even better than those companies. Sometimes that is the only option, but we see it too much that usually we can help you a lot better. So
yeah, that's a great point, Brittany, because if you're online, searching debt help or, settling debts, you're going to be on every scammer's radar, because this is a huge industry for folks, because they understand that people who are looking for help are ashamed or embarrassed and perhaps feeling a little desperate. So they prey on that and they make it seem so easy. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to see anyone. There's a couple of emails that are sent. They'll take care of it for you. But it's what they're not telling you, of course, that their fees are astronomical. They're not, yes. They're a law firm, but not really, not admitted to practice in Maine for sure. And so there's a lot that they don't tell you. And I often see people who have paid thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to these outfits, and only to be served by a sheriff with a complaint and summons on one of the credit cards that they thought were being settled. And what I always say is, if you're going to explore consolidation or settlement, go someplace local, someplace where you can sit down. Of course, sitting down with someone now looks a little different than it looked in 2019, but you understand what I mean in that you want to be able to look at someone straight in the face. If you're going to talk to an attorney, do they practice in Maine? Are they admitted to practice here? Or are they in California or Florida, which are the two most common places that we see these consolidation or debt settlement companies? So just be very wary of anyone that you find online, that you get a pop-up, or even cards in the mail. There's all sorts of scams, and they look really real, but they're not. They charge a lot of money.
Exactly.
So the last couple there, insurance, I believe Brittany talked about a little bit, and skip a payment is also one of the options that Town and Country does offer, and I think Brittany touched on as well.
Yep. Do we have any questions or anything we need to address, or are we looking?
I think we're looking okay for now.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the big B word, as Tony said, with bankruptcy.
The B word. And I say that because when I first meet with clients, what I do is I go through and we kind of do a whole financial picture. We talk about assets, we talk about income, we talk about expenses, and then eventually we get around to the debts. And a lot of times people will say, well, but what does it matter what I have for a car or what I have for, in my bank? I'm here to talk about this Bank of America debt. Apparently I'm going to be picking on Bank of America too, but they can handle it. So so it's important to get a whole financial picture. And there are different types of bankruptcy. Obviously, we've talked about non-bankruptcy solutions. And so when I meet with someone, it's to figure out what solution in the world of solutions that exist out there, what best suits you, whether it's non-bankruptcy or bankruptcy. And if it's bankruptcy, what type of bankruptcy makes sense, because there are different types. And I often say it's the hardest thing to do is actually call a bankruptcy attorney and set up a meeting. And then actually showing up to the meeting, that's also hard. But it's very stressful, and there's a lot of emotion tied into this. But some of the things here that you'll see are kind of signs that maybe you should think about it. Because for most bankruptcy attorneys in Maine, when you sit and you talk to them, and again, sit is a little different nowadays, but when you first talk to them, they will offer you a free initial consult. There's no obligation. You don't have to make a decision at the end of the meeting. It's really to obtain information, to figure out what options are out there. And I think that's across the board for probably 99% of the bankruptcy attorneys here in Maine. So, but some of the things that you see here, if you're, robbing Peter to pay Paul, if you're paying all your utilities on a credit card and then you're unable to pay the credit card and that balance keeps increasing, well, that's a problem. Or if you're just paying down the credit card enough to have enough room so that you can buy gas or buy groceries, I mean, that is not sustainable and it's stressful, right? So, and of course, if you have collection agencies or lawsuits, if you're being sued, you should talk to a bankruptcy attorney, and they're going to explore debt settlement with you as well, or debt consolidation. They're not going to just say bankruptcy. But these are signs that you may want to seriously think about it.
And we always say in collections, I mean, bankruptcy, it's scary. A lot of times you don't know what it's going to entail. You may think, great, I'm filing bankruptcy. I can never get a loan again. I can never have a bank account again. I'm just awful. But it's really not the case. And what we believe at Town and Country is it's okay. It happens. And we're not going to say you can never be a member again. I mean, we've had plenty of members get told, don't file bankruptcy. They're going to shut everything down. They're never going to lend you. They're never going to allow you to have an account. And that's just not the case. Call and have a conversation with us, because you'll find out that we're here to help. And sometimes bankruptcy is the only option. Those medical bills just are mounting up, and you just can't handle them. And so filing bankruptcy may be an option. So we send people to Mother Law all the time. They're extremely helpful just to talk, like she said, just sit down and talk, or even talk to your financial institution and see, do you think this is an option? Because it may be, and that's okay, is what I tell the members. So
if I can jump in for just one second.
Sure.
A couple of the questions we received from registrants, and we get, asked at least on a very regular basis, on bankruptcy, how long does it affect your credit, and how can you get financing after you filed for bankruptcy?
Great question. So, as far as how long it stays on your credit report, the two main types of bankruptcy for people are Chapter 7 and Chapter 13, and they stay on your credit report for different periods of time. Chapter 7 is a liquidation bankruptcy where you're not necessarily making any repayments on your debts. And it doesn't necessarily eliminate all debts, like it doesn't eliminate student loans or most income taxes, but it does certainly help with credit cards and medical bills and the like. And so a Chapter 7 will stay on your credit report for 10 years from when you filed. A Chapter 13 is a payment plan bankruptcy where you make payments on some of your debts from anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And the fact that you filed a Chapter 13 will stay on your credit report from 7 years from when you file the bankruptcy. So a little bit less than the Chapter 7. Now, as far as getting debt post-bankruptcy, and Brittany may be able to help a little bit, but my understanding of current, if you were going to get like a Fannie or Freddie backed mortgage, the requirement is that you have to be 2 years out of bankruptcy to be eligible for those federally guaranteed mortgages. You don't have that same restriction, however, if it's a mortgage that's held in-house with the lender. So if Town and Country isn't going to sell your loan or get it insured with Fannie or Freddie, they aren't necessarily bound by that 2-year requirement, and they make exceptions all the time, and I see it in
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And so they're not bound by that. Now, for most people, they hear 2 years, and that's fantastic because they thought it was going to be forever. But and for most people, to get your credit back to a place where you want it to be, to get a great interest rate and to build up some savings, 2 years is a pretty good window post bankruptcy. Even though the fact that you filed will stay on your report for longer, you can rebuild your credit pretty much from day one. And that's another reason why, if I have a client that is going to need a refinance or is going to need perhaps a new vehicle loan, I always have them talk to Town and Country at the beginning of their case to find out what they should be doing so that they can get that sooner rather than later. Because like I said, they're not Town and Country or most people have best luck with your local lenders when having this conversation, because you can actually talk to someone that understands and they can make exceptions to these kind of general rules.
Yep.
Great. And if you do, if you do file for bankruptcy, you've obviously gotten into a situation that, you've run out of options, so to speak.
Yeah.
So how do you, both of you, I guess, what this question would be directed at, what are some of the ways you avoid falling into the same trap down the road?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we're going to have a pandemic every 5 years, but
Yeah.
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 you never know. 2020 seems like 10 years.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I think a part of it, there's a couple of parts to that. One, you may find yourself talking to a bankruptcy attorney for circumstances beyond your control. Perhaps there was a divorce that your ex was responsible to pay the debts and they didn't, and they are not going to. And so now you are forced to proactively deal with it, so that you can move on. I mean, that's not your fault. And there's, your best financial planning, you're not going to avoid that. Maybe you'll make different partner choices in the future, but otherwise, you're not going to be able to necessarily plan financially your way out of that. And same with medical. A lot of folks have high deductible plans. So even if you have insurance, if your max out of pocket is $10,000, well, and you have a major medical event that spans, 2 or 3 years, I mean, that's $30,000 that, you did your best, but you certainly can't deal with that. But if it's a situation where you just found yourself kind of overspending on credit cards and really not keeping an eye on that, I mean, that's a good thing because that's a teachable event, right? We can learn how to budget. We don't learn in school how to do that for the most part. But that is a teachable event. And I know Town and Country has some resources with Savvy Money, and I know the collections team will help you do this, where they'll sit down and help you budget. And it's hard, and it's a hard habit to actually do every day. But that is teachable, and that's something that can kind of help you so that, assuming all of the life events don't necessarily happen, you can at least have control over that part.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. On this next slide, just be proactive with that. And as hard as it is to sit down and do a budget, we do it with members every day. We call it our personal financial statement. We sit down with members and just go through every single bill. It's extremely hard to do, but it's the best thing to do because you're laying things out. And if you did file bankruptcy and you did have that extra spending, what can you do to your budget so that doesn't happen again? So just really sit down, as awful and as hard as it is, call and we can help you with it, or just sit down and try and write everything out to try and help that. So, and I mean, and on the same lines of that, just assess your whole financial picture. Just look at everything with the world and the year that we've all had. I think a lot of people right now are they're looking at what are the needs versus the wants. Do you need to continue to pay that gym membership every month that's costing you $50 that you're not really going to because they're not really open, or maybe you don't feel safe? Could you take that away and maybe work out at home? Or getting your nails done, all these stuff that now we can't, some we can't even do, but just looking at that, we need to reassess our budget to help us prepare for who knows what's coming next, or who knows what the winter's going to bring. If you're in the restaurant business, I mean, none of us really know. Or if you have a child in school and school is shut down because there is a case and you're going to be out of work without pay, do you need to kind of adjust your budget now to prepare for that? I think being proactive is super, super important. And like we said in the beginning, just reach out for help, Just don't hesitate, because we're here to help. We're not here to judge you. We're just here to really help with your finances. And we deal with this every day. So we have some tips that we can give you. My number one tip, trying to help with your budget, is putting your loan payments on automatic loan payments. I always tell the members I work with, put them on, if you get paid weekly or bi-weekly, put those on automatic payments weekly, bi-weekly. Out of sight, out of mind. So when you get that paycheck direct deposited, you don't even see that loan payment. It's already paid. It's helping with your budget, help you stay on track. Is my number one tip, being collections.
Yeah, I mean, That is a that's a nice one because it's one less thing to think about.
Yeah.
Trying to juggle things. Another thing that people find helpful is maybe have segregated bank accounts. So if, for example, you don't have your real estate taxes escrowed in your mortgage, you may want to have something where you figure out what your real estate taxes are for the year, divide it by how many paychecks you get for the year, and have that amount go into these separate bank accounts every pay period, so that when it comes time to pay those real estate taxes, that money is there. And you haven't thought about it. It's not in your primary account, so it's not, when you're going to the grocery store, you look to see how much is in your account. You're not overestimating how much you have because that money is already set aside. So to segregate things is also very helpful. No.
Yep, agree. Go ahead, John.
Sorry
That's
to,
okay.
back to if you have loans, and I directed more at Brittany, if you have loans, I mean, you often hear about insurance, payment insurance, et cetera. After you've gotten a loan, is it too late to get payment insurance?
Nope, not at all. So if you qualify for that insurance, at least at Town and Country, we can add it on after. If you qualify, there's just some things you'd have to qualify to make sure like you are working. But no, we've done that a lot actually in the collections department, because we want your loans protected. So you can call in and just say, do I even have this protection on? And if we say no, we can fill out some paperwork, make sure you qualify, and we can add that. And then you'd be safe if you were out of work again, or maybe you break your arm and you have to have a surgery, and it never fails. We've helped members, we've put their protection on, and 6 months down the road, they've fallen, broken their arm, and they're out of work for 2 months. And now their loan's protected and they get it paid. So you never know what's going to happen. This year is a great example. No one knew this was going to happen. So it's great to make sure your loans are protected. Just call and see, and we can get it added on for you.
I think as if the financial curveballs brought about by financial challenges isn't bad enough. A lot of times there's an increase in scams, and especially purportedly from like the IRS, Social Security, et cetera. What are some of the ways or tips you might, either of you, both of you, might offer to avoid falling for some of these scams that they're really hard to identify as scams, especially to people who are in desperate situations?
Yeah, I mean, I deal with a lot of members that I've developed a relationship with, and they'll just call and they'll describe it to me before. I mean, I always say, don't give out information. Like, don't do that. They'll call and just say like, hey, I got this piece of mail, or I got a call, and like, do you think this is legit? Or they're asking for my social security number, and all this it just doesn't line up. And we'll see it and say, just don't give out the information if you're not 100% sure, would be my tip. But I would call your financial institution and I have members that call me all the time and just say, they asked me this, this, and this. They wanted me to give them my checking account number and send them a check. And then they were going to send me money back, and no. So if it just seems a little off to you, call and ask your financial institution, and just see, because I mean, we see it all the time. So we see all different kinds of ways people are trying to take advantage of people. I don't know if you help people with that too, Tanya.
Oh yeah,
see it? Yeah.
It's scary, especially I find it's the IRS type notices that are the worst, because they try to make them sound official, but if you actually look at it, it doesn't make sense. There's always something on it that's off. Like, so for example, I had a client who was a business was an LLC, and the LLC did owe taxes, but they were threatening to take his Social Security. So they were almost there, right? The scam almost worked. They had the right person, the right entity, the fact that taxes were owed, but LLCs don't get Social Security income. So there was something just a little bit off. And usually you can see down at the bottom, there's something and they're usually postcards, I find too. Lately, they've been doing a lot of postcards that are the scams for the IRS. IRS doesn't send postcards.
No.
If you're, if you, and the IRS letters all look the same. And so if something looks a little bit different, it's probably not from the IRS, but they do a darn good job making it seem like it is. But the good news, I mean, if you do have, if you are a member, and you can go to a local institution like Town and Country, you can sit down because they see it all the time. Or if you, have somebody else look at it who maybe isn't so emotionally tied to whatever it is that you're dealing with, because they may be able to pick up on one of those things that just maybe doesn't seem quite right in the letter, because they never get it perfect, but it's good enough to cause you stress for sure.
Along the same lines, it's not really a scam per se, but I think in these challenging times, you hear or see more ads. If you owe more than $10,000, call us and we can, make your debt disappear. I mean, what do you share, offer insight on those types of what appear to be legitimate businesses in that type of business?
I mean, that old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's where I dump those solicitations. And while they may not technically be a scam, they're really close to that line because they really are misleading people. And generally what those companies are the debt consolidation, the debt settlement that are taking the enormous fees and not doing what you thought they were doing or what they seemingly promised. There's, some of they do for income taxes, there are ways to settle those, and those ads are even more outrageous because like, don't bother calling us unless you owe $25,000 or more to the IRS. And it's like, because then it creates this false sense of, demand in that. So while I guess they're not technically scams, they're pretty darn close in my opinion. So
or like the interest rates, they sometimes be like, oh yeah, we can give you all this money, but you're going to pay us at 100% interest rate, or no payments for 90 days, but then they're going to tack on all that interest. So look at the fine print too, if you get something in the mail before you send them anything or inquire, because they'll get you too on that interest rate. So
yeah, absolutely. The other thing that we haven't necessarily touched on the slide, but about monitoring your credit report. So that's a good one because often I think I don't know, 70, 80% of people have a mistake on their credit report. It's some outrageous number. And it can, all of our information is out on the dark web somewhere, I'm sure, right? So it's important to regularly check your credit report. And I know a lot of different credit card companies and different services will offer you kind of a free credit monitoring. Obviously, you don't want to pay for something like that. It's totally unnecessary. Annualcreditreport.com is the one government place that you can go that's legitimate, that you can get a full credit report from all free credit reporting agencies. Thank you, Brittany. That you can get one free thing, because the important thing about monitoring your credit report, like for example, it just happened to me in the last year or so. Someone ordered, it was like a mail order magazine, like I think it's Ginny's, or I think is the name of it. And they had they used my name, somehow got my credit, and had some like $350 item shipped to some address in Pennsylvania. And it's because I had an alert on my credit report that I knew that this happened. And immediately I see this come up and I don't know what this is. And I certainly didn't order something, and I do not live in Pennsylvania. So, so I was able to straighten it out, but because I was able to get a quick alert of someone trying to use my credit, that I was able to quickly fix it so that it didn't impact me for the long term. So.
And like she said, to check your credit, there's annualcreditreport.com, and there's also Savvy Money that we have in Town and Country under our website. It's a awesome budgeting tool, as well as monitoring your credit. But we do love the budgeting tool is great. So you can do two things. You can get alerts if there's something on there that you're like, whoa, I don't know what this is. You can put it in a dispute. Also, our website, tcfcu.com, a great resource. You can read about the different loans we can offer, the financial relief options that we talked about today. Learn more about those, and you can access Savvy Money through there. And of course, motherlaw.com is a great financial resource as well.
And you'll see if you're just kind of curious to know a little bit more about bankruptcy, but you're not really ready to talk to anyone, I would encourage you to look at our website, because we do have a lot of information there. Again, it's just informational. No one's going to know that you logged on and we're reading articles about bankruptcy. So it's a nice way to kind of get a little bit of a sense of the different flavor of options that may exist out there.
And feel free to reach out to Town and Country in the collections department, or your financial institution to discuss, because we deal on my department in collections. We help members through bankruptcy all the time. And again, you may not be 100% ready to talk to an attorney, or maybe even go on the website, and you just want to talk to us that you've been dealing with. We can help you. We can give you some options and tell you the different types of bankruptcies and kind of what to expect, because we help members with that all the time. And along those same lines, you may not be ready to talk to an attorney, or you may not be ready to talk to one in collections because you think maybe we're just scary and we're not willing to help. But at Town and Country, our collections department is amazing, if I do say so myself. We're here to help members find solutions. We're not big, scary people just harassing you phone calls. We want to help you. We're here to help you. So just call us and see what we can do for you. So those are some financial resources, and then we also have listed some community resources that you could reach out to see also if they could help you: food pantries, heating programs, general assistance from your town.
And the last couple of websites there, CEI and York County Community Action. They're wonderful for all sorts of different reasons, but I've had extensive interactions with them because they have fantastic housing counselors there that can help you if you're having mortgage issues or in foreclosure. They are able to kind of help you through that process as well. And those are free resources. And again, they're wonderful. I don't have enough good things to say about CEI and York County Community Action, so highly recommend them. For the housing counselor aspect of things.
One question that comes up from time to time, sometimes when people are looking for work and apply, sometimes organizations ask to do a background check on the applicant. Say they have filed for bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And does that show up? And if so, if somebody is questioned about that, other than telling the honest truth, but what are some ways to answer that question?
I think you must have been reading my emails today, John, because I was just going back and forth with a client today on that exact issue, and that her contract is being bought out by someone else, and the new employer is going to be doing a background check. And they've been told that, that they're doing this background check. Now, they weren't told if it was going to be a financial, credit report background check, because there's all sorts of different background checks that can be run. And what I told her was, if it is a financial credit report, you're going to know that because they have to have you sign to authorize that type of background check. So if that's happening, they're going to see your bankruptcy. So my advice to her and my advice to anyone would be to be honest about it, because they're going to see it. You're going to stress about it. And so I think being proactive and saying, hey, I had I lost my job for a period. I got behind on my mortgage and I ended up having to file a bankruptcy to repay what I owe. Everything is going great now. I'm making my payments. Things are going great. But I just wanted to tell you because you will see that on my credit report. And is that, depending on the job, would that be a disqualifier? Maybe. But what I have found in my experience, specifically, I'll give the example of the shipyard in Portsmouth. They will send their employees to us to file for bankruptcy, because if they get into a situation where they have an overwhelming amount of debt, they're now a security risk for the shipyard. And, they don't want that risk. So they will say, if you don't address this debt by way of filing for bankruptcy, now, you're going to lose your job. And so that to me is an example of a really progressive view of bankruptcy, and that it's a tool to get you back on your feet and eliminate any potential risk there for the employer or for someone who's desperate and stressed and overwhelmed with debt. And the only time that I've seen someone get in trouble, from an employer is when they've lied about their bankruptcy status. And, that's understandable. Probably if you lied to the employer about anything, that they felt was meaningful, that would be a problem. But so I, as hard as it is, I always say, be honest. And I always make myself available. If their employer has any questions that I can answer as their bankruptcy attorney, I'm always happy to do that. And for the most part, that's worked out. And in a similar situation, if someone's looking to rent a new apartment, it's the same type of, question, not just an employer, but potentially a new landlord may have an issue or a question with that as well. So.
How about
questions?
We end with one more question. It's the same question for both of you. Over the next year, it's going likely, the curveball is going to continue to with people's finances. What would you say is one tip to help somebody prepare as much as you can prepare for a year that will probably be filled with some challenges?
So what I have been telling members is to be proactive and start a budget is my main thing, to lay out finances. And I mean, I've even done it myself, just in case anything were to happen or you need to stay at home with your children and you don't have the ability to work from home. Just staying ahead of your budget and really adjusting it. The gym, I think, is a great example. Just cutting out these little expenses that maybe we're not going to be able to go to again because they're going to get shut down, or maybe you just don't feel comfortable. So adjusting those and then trying to just put a little way into savings. Members that I'm helping, I'll create sub accounts for them. At Town and Country, you can do that. And so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's not in your checking. And it's even putting $10 a paycheck into the savings to start building that up, because it will build up quickly. So you have something to fall back on, and just keep assessing your budget and making the little changes along the way has been my number one thing, just to prepare us for who knows what can come even next month or all next year. So, and winter's coming in Maine, then there's heating. So just that budget to me, super important. And I've helped a lot of members just restructure their budget and just start putting just a little bit away for savings. If maybe you didn't even have a savings before, trying to slowly build that up would be my number one thing.
Great. Tanya?
No, I think that's great, Brittany. And, I would echo that. As far as really just looking at what you have for reoccurring payments. I mean, do you need all of these things? I mean, it's $9 a month here, $10 a month there, $27 a month. Do you really need these? Could you temporarily perhaps suspend them? Let's get through this pandemic. Let's get on the other side. And then if you want to restart it, that's great. But in the meantime, you're going to be saving $182 a month because you don't have those reoccurring expenses. So I think that's a great point. And then the other thing is, if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have enough money to pay and you have to stay home, or your employer has laid you off, focus on the important things, food, shelter, transportation. The personal loans, the credit cards, they're going to be there. Don't you worry. They're not going anywhere. But we want you to be fed and dry and warm and healthy. And so if it comes down to it, don't kick yourself. Don't stress about those credit cards. Like I said, Bank of America is going to do fine. Don't you worry about them. So just focus on what's important for you and your family.
That's great information from both of you, Tanya Sambatokis and Brittany Eaton. We really appreciate your time tonight, and we are recording this this webinar, and we will have a copy of it emailed to all participants, and it will be posted at tcfcu.com. And again, we appreciate our presenters and our participants.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and have a great night.